Central Command said tonight the military has used a drone to kill one member of the ISIS group that carried out that suicide bombing yesterday. Officials say that no civilian casualties are being reported. It was yesterday when 13 U.S. service members and at least 169 Afghans were killed at the Kabul airport in the midst of evacuations from that country. President Biden immediately afterward promised that after the attack that those responsible would be hunted down. Welcome everyone to the 7 tonight here on KTVU Plus. I'm Alex Savage. The airlifts have now resumed at the Kabul airport under maximum security, and crowds of Afghans are still hoping to get on one of those evacuation flights despite the threat of even more terror attacks. Fox's Jennifer Griffin has more tonight.
We're monitoring these threats very, very specifically, virtually in real time.
New details about the attack at the Kabul airport forced a Pentagon correction. There was one suicide bomber, not two, yesterday, and no explosion at the Barron Hotel. A single suicide bomber approached Marines at Abbey Gate. Then gunmen opened fire, the Pentagon unwilling to blame the Taliban.
I understand that you're reliant on them for protection around the airport, but are you ruling out them being involved because you're so dependent on the Taliban right now?
Actually, I didn't hear General McKenzie put it that way, Jen. In fact, I think in one of the questions he got, and I think it was Idris's, he said, Idris asked, was there a failure? And the general said, of course, there was a failure somewhere, obviously.
And in terms of ISIS-K, how many ISIS-K prisoners were left at Bagram and are believed to have been released from the prison there? And why weren't they removed before the U.S. pulled out to some place like Gitmo?
Well, I don't know the exact number. Clearly, it's in the thousands.
U.S. officials say reports that they shared lists of Americans and Afghan allies with the Taliban are incorrect, adding that in some cases, to get these Afghans through a checkpoint, they provide the information, and for the most part, the Taliban have been letting those people pass.
The notion that we are just providing them with names upon names of individuals who may stay behind in Afghanistan or in a way that would expose anyone to additional risk, that is simply false.
The Pentagon also denied reports the Taliban had already entered Kabul airport.
Have the Taliban entered or taken control of any parts of the military section of HKIA that you're aware of?
The Taliban are not in control of any part of Hamid Karzai International Airport. I saw that report too. It's false.
As to why the U.S. didn't send those ISIS-K to Gitmo, the answer from the Pentagon, they thought the Afghan National Army would watch them. Troops remain on edge tonight in Kabul. Even after that suicide bombing yesterday, 12,500 people were evacuated on 35 military transport planes. Unfortunately, some of those C-17s were medevacs. The 13 American heroes who were killed by that suicide bomber will return home to Dover tomorrow. At the Pentagon, Jennifer Griffin, Fox News.
All right, joining us now to weigh in on the latest with the Afghanistan situation is UC Berkeley Global Affairs Professor Stephen Fish. Professor, great to have you on tonight. If I can start off by asking you about yeah, absolutely. The late word we just got a short time ago out of Afghanistan that the U.S. military has carried out this drone strike on a member of the ISIS group believed to be responsible for yesterday's suicide bombing. So are you surprised at all about how quickly we saw this retaliatory strike, and what further retaliatory action are we likely to see?
I'm not surprised to see it. Biden promised it right away. We were able to locate a target and make the attack. So that doesn't surprise me that he attacked so quickly. I think we have a lot of attacks of this type forthcoming. I think ISIS is going to be a problem in Afghanistan. We're going to have to deal with the Taliban as well. The United States will now have to actually conduct its raids, of course, from offshore, from outside of Afghanistan itself. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this in coming months.
All right, let's talk about the operation to try to get people out of Afghanistan, and that withdrawal deadline now just 4 days away. So clearly the window for evacuating people from the country is closing, and it's closing quickly. Now you have the threat of further terror attacks and tighter security at the Kabul airport. How much more difficult is it going to become here in the coming days for Afghans to get out of that country?
That's hard to say. That's on the ground information. that's very hard to obtain. I think it's even hard for our top policymakers to actually ascertain that. There's so many moving parts here. We don't know exactly how the Taliban is going to continue to respond to the evacuation effort. What we do know is that the Biden administration, after an initial big stumble, which was, grossly overestimating how long the government of Afghanistan that we supported was going to be in power, it was going to be to hold up against the Taliban, and then the disaster that ensued with the taking of Kabul, and us being pretty much unaware. It's recovered pretty well. This evacuation program has worked. And if you think about it, 120,000 people have been evacuated in the last couple of weeks. Just over the last 24 hours, we got more than 10,000 out. That's an enormous operation. So after the initial stumble, the administration's done a reasonably good job of getting people out. Whether everybody who we want to get out will be out by the deadline or not, we have to wait and see. I also wouldn't be surprised if that deadline is not hard, if we do see some evacuations proceeding even after that deadline is passed.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because obviously you heard the president talking this week about having his team formulate some of these contingency plans with the idea that maybe you do have to push back that August 31st deadline if you still do have Americans and Afghan allies in that country. What do you think the likelihood is that the withdrawal date is pushed back somewhat to try to make sure you get everyone that you want to be out of the country out?
It's hard to say. I would say it's probably reasonably likely that will be pushed back a little bit, or perhaps the date will formally remain in place, but still some sort of evacuation program will continue. I would be surprised if it's all over and done 4 days from now.
All right. Appreciate your perspective tonight. UC Berkeley Global Affairs Professor
Pleasure.
Stephen Fish, thank you so much for taking the time tonight. We appreciate it.